Welcome to Issues and Insights. I'm George Pennington, your occasional host. And today on the other side of the studio is Professor Chris Jesse. Is that right, Chris?
I've never been called professor.
Oh, I know, you're a professor.
Before, but hey, I like that.
You went to WKU. You studied the important things, okay?
I'll take it.
Spent time in dental, I assume.
Yes.
All right.
Been to a few games.
Been to a couple, yeah.
Yeah.
So, Chris, if you would, tell the people a little bit about your background. You don't have to give your ACT scores unless you want to brag.
Sure.
A little bit where you're from, your path in life, and how you ended up in transportation.
Well, sure. I'm, again, a Western student.
But Hart County, let's start in Hart
Yes,
County.
yeah.
Can't leave out Hart County, buddy. I'm just saying. It's
Graduated
important.
from Hart County in '96.
There you
so
go.
Alma mater there. But I lived in Hart County all my life. Grew up on a farm there,
Okay.
a dairy farm at
Okay.
that. So I grew up with that background.
So you're a morning person? Not really?
By force.
By force, okay.
I did mornings in radio for years too, so
Okay.
you know, you never can sleep late when you've done that for so many years.
Okay.
Even if you want to or can.
Yes.
But anyway, so Hart County farm boy, grew up there in Western. Did that for graduated.
Alma mater, my
graduate-
nursing mother.
Got the broadcasting, radio, television degree and
Okay.
meteorology.
And meteorology.
So
okay.
love weather. I've always loved weather. It's been a hobby and a passion for most of my years. Then got into radio. Got bit
Okay.
by the radio bug. And I've dabbled in that and been in radio. Even now, I still do some part-time
Do you
work.
really?
Oh, yeah.
Where?
So I owned a station,
Right.
co-owned a station in Edmonton for
Right.
about a decade.
Right.
And still work at the Hart County AM station there, do some work for
Do you
them.
really?
Yeah.
Good.
Just, you know, it's a fun thing, consulting. I've great friends, and the gentleman who owns that has always been a great friend to me, so I help them out and do what I can. I
Okay.
just love radio, so been there, did that, and then 2010 applied with the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet here
Right.
in Elizabethtown when they had a public information officer job open, and I've been doing this.
So that's you?
Yes, been
You're
doing this.
you're the public information guy.
Since 2010.
Okay.
So we talk about roads when we come to to talk to people like you and,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
do these kinds of events and. When media outlets contact us, the general public, phone calls, emails, whatever needs to be answered, and the complaint department. A lot of
there can't be any complaints.
The complaint department.
Surely you jest.
Sure,
Surely you
sure.
jest.
But it's my job to give information to the people
Okay.
about what's going on with the transportation cabinet and internally. I share information among our different departments, legislators, our government officials locally, whether it's the city of Elizabethtown, Hardin County, kind of mediate some of that stuff back and forth when it comes to projects, incidents that take place and we're involved with, those kinds of things. So it's all around communications.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. This is the summer season. Technically, still summer, I
Oh, yeah.
believe. Get us through the year. What happened summer season, then fall, then
Sure. There's this is our, I want to say our busy time of the year, probably though our busiest from top to bottom. And what I mean by that is all of our departments are working, doing things this time of the year. It's construction season.
Sure.
So our planning and design folks are busy working. They're working year round on projects for future development, whether that's a small safety improvement at an intersection.
Okay.
Or if it's a larger project where we're building 10 miles of a new route across country somewhere, and everything in between. So they're working on design, project development, and a lot of that's dictated by safety studies we've done or capacity studies, transportation studies that have been done
Okay.
to relieve volume, congestion.
Sure.
There are tons of things that go into what they do, but so those folks are working year round, and then our construction folks are out working on roads. I mean, they're literally building them this time of the year.
Sure.
A lot of people don't think about it, but in the wintertime, it's hard to put pavement down when it's cold.
It is.
You can't get concrete.
It's
and
tough.
You don't want to work part days, and then so we have a construction season that basically runs from say early April into we can go into late October or even into November.
November.
Depending upon temperature
Just
and
depending.
climate, how we kind
Yeah.
of can work that out. But so that's construction season. And then, when we flip the page from construction season, most of our folks are geared up. Our maintenance crews, at least in our
Right.
11 counties, we have 11 counties in District 4. We'll talk maybe more about that in a minute. But we gear up for snow and ice, and that's getting equipment ready, making sure we have salt supplies, calcium supplies.
Okay.
Have all that stuff ready to go for snow and ice. And whether it's a good winter, bad winter, good winter,
Yeah.
a heavy winter or a light winter, you have to prepare the same because
Sure.
you just don't know.
Yeah. Now, how big, how far south and north you go, west and east
So
in
I'm
our
gonna try to get this right. So we take in the I-65, Western Kentucky Parkway, Bluegrass Parkway kind of corridor, cross section. But Hart County,
All right.
we've got Greene County,
All right.
you got Taylor, Marion,
You got Marion.
Washington,
Okay.
Nelson,
So we're
Hardin, and then Grayson, and Meade, and Breckinridge County.
so
I
you
think,
do those. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's my
Ohio County's not
No,
us.
that's 11. So I think
Okay.
I don't think I forgot
Okay.
anybody. In there. 11
Gotcha.
counties in the district.
Okay, so you go down around then.
Yeah. And your District 4.
District 4.
Sometimes there's a confusion. A lot of people kind of associate state police post locations with transportation. It's not fair to them or us to put them. But Post 4, obviously, and District 4 don't necessarily align up.
Right.
And same thing goes. Hart County is kind of a funny county in that way. It's District 4 transportation. It's Post 3 and state police. But that's how far south we go. A lot of I-65 and Parkway focus on what we do too.
Okay, gotcha. So what projects, I'm Canadian, you know.
Sure.
I'm projects. What projects are ongoing in this area right now, are the big projects?
There are a lot of things being developed and on the ground. We're certainly looking at some things. Maybe go back and get a couple things that have just been completed in recent years.
Okay.
Folks have certainly seen a lot of R-cuts and roundabouts on the ground here locally. We understand, those are still new to folks.
They're
as far
still
as
a little bit new.
New traffic.
Had a couple R-cuts on Dixie, don't there? There's a couple.
Some new traffic management devices, and we can talk more about those too if you want to a little bit later. But those have shown, again, they're kind of polarizing in a like them, love them, don't like them, hate them kind of thing. But we can't ignore the safety values that go into there. So those have been very successful. That's my point.
What do the data show? Do the data show there's less accidents after we've had it, or has it been long enough to get up?
Well, we do have those numbers. We have fewer collisions on Dixie especially,
Okay.
but the main thing is not so much in the reduction of the collisions, it's the reduction of the types of collisions that take place. So when they happen, they're less severe.
I gotcha.
We have fewer injuries and a lot fewer fatalities. So,
okay.
That's our goal. People are still going to drive. We're all going to make decisions, as we drive. But we reduce the opportunity for you to have a bad crash.
Gotcha.
We're going to save lives and reduce injuries. So,
And that's the same philosophy of the roundabouts too. Yes,
It
that you
is.
slow down,
Yeah.
and you may have some things, but typically they're going to be
and
less
if you have a fender bender in one, you're not T-boning someone.
Yeah.
It's not high speed. It's
Yeah.
lower speed impacts and those kinds of things. So, again, you rarely have major injuries or fatalities at those kinds of intersections and those improvements. And the other thing about roundabouts is once you adapt to them, they keep things moving.
They do.
You realize once you've used a lot of roundabouts how much time you sit at a traffic signal waiting.
Yes.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying roundabouts are the only solution for all and they replace all traffic signals. That's not the case at all. There are places where volume, space, and all of that don't fit a roundabout scenario.
Sure.
But where roundabouts can be applied, they can be very effective in both efficiency and getting you where you want to go, as well as obviously the safety aspect is number one.
Yeah.
But so those have been a tremendous success. Again, from a safety study standpoint, we've had the ongoing project is along St. John is continuing.
Okay.
So that project is on the ground.
What's a estimated length on that?
We're looking at this fall into next year before everything gets finished.
25-ish?
Yes.
Mid or late? What are you hearing?
Don't have it in my head right at the moment, but yeah.
I think it's October 2025.
We're getting into next year.
I just made that up.
For the finishing touches on that, and that's one of those narrow.
What are they doing? Putting a middle lane in, or a turning lane?
It's basically widening and moving
sure.
those utilities out to the side a little further. I mean, when Ring Road came into existence years ago,
Yes.
You had an obvious beeline connection between the inner and outer of Elizabethtown, and that road was never designed to be that connection whatsoever, but it became that.
And with G.C. Burkhead there,
yeah,
it's used a little bit.
And then the build up around it
Yes.
from residential, and so yes, those kinds of things. That improvement's going to be nice once it's done.
Yes.
In the last few years, obviously, I-65 was completed. Within the last decade, 3 lanes all the way from state line all the way up to Indiana. So That's been a big help. For folks who live just to our south, and again, me being from Hart County, I remember those days when the interstate was closed for a wreck.
Yes.
And 31W was bogged up from Elizabethtown down to Cave City.
So you cut through the farmers' fields, didn't you?
I did.
I'm sure you did.
You
knew them all. You knew them all. So
knew
you
those
do
back roads. But very rarely do we have. That's not saying all of them are eliminated. But very rarely do we have a full closure on I-65 where it outflows to that point again. And it's not in our district, but to the north, the work that's being done up there. Anxious to get that done this fall too.
Sure.
And that will open up perhaps before some new segments of that.
So when do you think that will be completed? What are you hearing?
This fall.
You think
it's done this fall, and we'll get those lanes open from Lebanon Junction on the north. Again, that's not this district. I want to make that clear.
What district is that?
That's District 5 out of Louisville.
It's 5 in Louisville.
It's not my area, but a lot of folks are interested in it.
Absolutely.
It's very important to folks through here and as they travel through. So, those are some highlights. Something, coming up, the Northwest Connector at Glendale. Of course, the Glendale interchange, too. I want to mention that. That has just been completed. For practical purposes, it's complete.
Okay.
There at exit 86. And that's going to move things a lot. We've seen.
So when there was already an exit there, but they redid it.
Yeah.
So what are the improvements once it's done?
That's an interesting story. So we've always known that Glendale site was spec for development, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's for years there have been possible developments come and go that maybe fell through or what have you. But with that in mind,
it's the Hyundai thing years ago.
Yeah,
years
Hyundai
ago.
that ended up down in Alabama. All of this, but there's been a road plan to redo that interchange since that time. I mean, there really has been an idea of this interchange can't handle a huge development there. So that plan has been drawn and kind of put on the shelf and waiting in queue, if you will, since then. So, when the announcement came, we had to pull that off. And, when I-65 was rebuilt years ago, it was kind of curious to many folks who paid attention. Why didn't you build the Glendale interchange with this? Well, we're not going to build it to a plan that may not fit a development that's coming there, then have to tear down new construction or really do some major modifications.
Okay.
So, you wait till an announcement comes and then, Glendale's being built and that interchange was built. It doesn't necessarily fit what's out there right now with respect to the way you see traffic today before the plant opens. But we try to tell folks that with the way it's designed. Keep in mind it's made to move a large volume of traffic in and out of those work facilities. So that's the design of it, and while it doesn't necessarily look like the continuing movements on the southbound 31W, for example, are what fit today, it is designed for it will fit for the volume that will be coming in and out of that plant.
Are the plans on the shelf for another exit down that way? What are you hearing?
That's one of the recommendations that came out of the Glendale study that we just did and wrapped up a year ago. And of course, I mentioned briefly, we'll get into that now, the Northwest bypass, which will connect New Glendale Road, 1136, over to 222 on the interstate side. So what that will enable is obviously traffic, high volume of traffic, trucks, bigger vehicles, to make their way around Glendale without having to go through downtown Glendale. Now, we want traffic in downtown Glendale, but we want the right kind of traffic, right?
Sure.
You want people who want to visit Glendale and pass through and see this, beautiful, charming town. If it's a line of trucks coming through there, that's
something else.
That's another thing. That's what this Northwest, connector will enable, is those trucks to have a great route to get to where they're going without having to disturb downtown Glendale too much. That's the primary goal there.
And I see your name and picture in the paper a couple weeks ago about.
Probably
you had something. Where'd y'all have that at?
We had that meeting at Old East Hardin.
At East Hardin, okay.
And that was the meeting where we gave alternates. There are 3 different plans that we were showing the public to pick for that route. So, we know a general area. We've decided that back in the study, but what needed to be. But these are actually 3 specific routes of where the road would actually go. And we're still continuing to accept comments on that. They can visit the website glendalestudy.com.
glendalestudy.com.
And continue to fill out that survey until the deadline date. And I don't have that in my head, but it's still a little ways off. Still got some time to get
From feedback there, was there one of the 3 that
Nothing
that people were
nothing really stuck
favoring?
out to me. Obviously, we had a cross section of folks who lived there, who were going to be working at the Blue Oval SK.
Okay.
And then just general neighborhood interests. So you kind of had a cross section of mix of people who were there. And I think what we saw, or what I observed, I can say this just for myself, because I talked to a lot of media folks. I didn't talk to so many of the general public like most of our agents
Okay.
did. But I think they were digesting what they were seeing
Okay.
as much as anything. And then I expect we're going to see a lot of online surveys. Folks could take the survey with them in paper form and fill it out that night if they wanted to. But I think we're going to see a lot of online surveys, people going back, kind of looking at, thinking more about those routes,
Okay.
and then filling that in. So that's what I'm hoping happens.
And once one's decided upon, what was it, GlendaleStudy.com?
GlendaleStudy.com.
Glendale Study.
Yeah.
Once one is chosen,
Mm-hmm.
then do you have to buy up
The right of way,
the right of way
Yeah.
from
So-
that? So
then
it's
that-
still a bit of a process.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And while this seems expedited, it is following the process
Yeah.
that we go through to do any kind of project like this. So yes, the next step is once that we get that feedback and we compile it, the team that works together, the consultant, the state, local officials, we'll all get together and kind of look at the data that was turned into the survey data and pick a preferred alternate. Then we will take that back to the public and present, hey, here's what the surveys kind of,
Okay.
here's the best case scenario for all of the feedback that we received. Then we'll present that to the public, and then we'll move forward from that point into a design, and then buying right of way once that design
Okay.
is finalized.
So is that about once it's finalized, is it about a 2-year, what 2-year kind of
Typically,
project
we're looking at trying to get the data done and get that presentation back to the public this fall.
Okay.
So if that
Good.
happens, and
Wow.
it's all based
Okay.
on budgets.
Yeah.
What the legislature gives
Sure.
us. We operate on a 2-year biennium, real money in action budget.
Fiscal year starting
The biennium just started this past July.
July. Yeah, July. Okay.
So we're in the, we're just starting that next 2-year phase here. So we could see the construction, within the next 1.5 to 2 years.
Okay.
Realistically, that would be a possibility.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's that's another thing that's in the hopper. We're looking at other improvements around town, the North Miles corridor toward up toward north of Ring Road.
Sure.
That's a study area.
So you are looking at that to
Yeah.
widen that. I mean, it could be widened.
That's
It could be.
That's what. But and we have-
Shepherdsville Road. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so those are some of the big things we're looking at.
Okay.
South, I want to mention the south side of Blue Oval SK, New Glendale Road.
Yes.
Or Gilead Church Road, I'm sorry, on the south side. That's something we're looking at too.
Was an exit proposed for that area?
That was recommended in the study,
That's
yes.
what I thought.
That's something we'll investigate. It's not a project at this point, but it's something
they're
that's
looking at.
definitely looking at. And should Blue Oval SK and that facility grow even more, that becomes more of a need at that point. So we'll take the barometer of how things are going from a traffic standpoint and volume standpoint of the manufacturing area there, and that will certainly build into plans.
Okay.
So those are things that are coming up, and we haven't even talked about the regular things we do: maintenance, mowing, resurfacing, just taking care of the roads that we do have, pothole filling.
Yeah.
We haven't got there, but I can go into that if you want.
Yeah, you can. Now, you mentioned the road. Help me on this. Coming east on the WK.
Yes.
All right there at the Love's truck stop.
Yeah, where Ring Road stops.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, as I understand it, you've bought up right-of-ways.
Mm-hmm.
Have we bought up all the right-of-ways all the way over to I-65 from there?
Much of that
Much
has
of
been,
that.
has been secured, and
okay.
that's a project.
That's kinda
that
what
was
I've heard.
That was a project that was in development
Years ago, wasn't it?
Got paused with budgets and some other things. So, but yes, that's definitely something that's being taken back off the shelf to reevaluate
Okay.
and potentially move forward with. Again, that all depends upon
Priority, you have to be nimble. Priority
Well,
shift and shelved and reshelved and yeah.
when we get that budget list at
Yes.
the end of that,
I
at
got
the
you.
end of the transportation plan that comes out, that's what we know we're going to do.
Okay.
So yeah.
So it's it's somewhere in the
Yeah,
priority list.
and the idea is to take that on over to 31W even, and connect it to 31
That
over
makes sense.
65.
That makes sense.
And then, even longer range, we'll mention this for the folks on the other side of the county into heading toward LaRue County.
Good.
There's the concept and the idea of extending on around to the Lincoln Parkway as
Sure.
well and joining it on the Sportsman Lake side of town.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good. So let's see. What good controversy is going on? Wait a minute. Just you can't speak for Blue Oval SK, but they're having to be a little bit nimble, aren't they? As EVs have more, as the EV market has softened, and for instance, Toyota's doing hybrids,
Sure.
and so they may have to be nimble with what they're going to do with that second building. Are you hearing things similar to that?
I can't pay attention to that kind of, our priority is to build the road
Right.
that's going to get people in and out of wherever, whether it's
You're being prudent. You're being prudent. You can't speak for them.
and I can't.
No.
But that's what I said just like before. I said, if something happens, and who knows what the future holds, whether it's a type of vehicle or another entity altogether that comes in there, we have to be prepared as the transportation cabinet to handle a volume of traffic.
You have to assume the second building is going to be full and vibrant in some capacity.
As best we can.
In some capacity.
Yeah,
yes.
and then be prepared so that we can move as quickly as we can if that happens.
Yes.
So planning is a big part of that. Just making sure we have a plan ready to
Okay.
go is a big part of that.
Gotcha. Yeah. I would assume you'd have to assume that in some capacity,
Yeah.
a second building will be vigorous, irrespective of what's
Sure.
happening inside it.
And the interchange was built for that.
Okay, good.
I mean, it's not something we could build to a part capacity and then come back. Oh, we need to make this a little bigger.
Yes, you have to assume. Yes.
When we did that, you have to swing for the fence in making sure that can handle pretty much whatever will be planned for that area.
Just curious, how has Hart County grown the last 2 or 3 years from your perspective?
A lot. And much like
How about property values there?
Yes, and much like other counties,
Yes.
because of the surrounding interest in Blue Oval SK, you've seen.
So you bought up a lot of land a couple years ago, aren't you? Is that what you're saying, Chris?
Yeah, but
you bought up a lot of property.
Just like a lot of our other counties, there's a tremendous amount of development going on, whether it's the bypass in Grayson County or in Litchfield, or a new bypass around Bardstown,
Right.
Nelson County. Well, there's development going on everywhere, and there's a new bypass in Horse Cave in Hart County. So,
Okay.
those.
Have you seen a fair number of people moving in to your area?
Yeah.
Have you?
Yeah, you see a lot of that. And again, in your mind, you contribute that to to the economic growth going on here and the epicenter as though that shock wave emanates. So, we think of that, but and I'm far enough south where we are. Bowling Green plays into that as well.
Sure, it does.
So, yeah.
So you didn't go see the Crashers last Saturday night, did you?
I did not.
You should have. I hear they always rock and roll.
I saw a lot of Facebook posts.
They rock and roll, buddy.
But they did. They had a great performance there on the courthouse lawn in Murfreesville.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
A couple of my friends went down.
So you okay? Yeah.
I'm very familiar with it. I've seen them bunch. Yeah, they're fine. They're fine.
I did see the video of one of the singers. He climbed on top of one of the food trucks.
Oh, he does.
He was having a good
He's
time.
nimble. He's nimble, and he can sing. He can sing whatever.
Yeah,
whatever.
he was having a good time.
All right, we've got 5 minutes, so go over whatever priorities, whatever topics you want to cover.
Yeah, I want to take an opportunity, I guess, just to tell people, roads are so they're instrumental in everything we do, and they affect everybody. Whether it's schools and getting kids to school, mass transportation on a bus or public transportation, you and me and our family driving on vacation or our daily commute to work. I would love folks to realize that it's a community effort, and while it's a government structure of local to Frankfort and the legislature, I want folks to know that locally we're citizens. We're your neighbors. We live here. We work here. My daughter, who just graduated recently from high school,
From the newly renovated Hart County High School, let's say,
and who was a teen driver, when we make decisions, when we're looking at roundabouts, when we're looking at our cuts, I want folks to know we're thinking about our kids driving on these roads.
Yeah.
And it's fair. You can criticize or evaluate and then look at, and you can like something or dislike it, and that's fair. But again, we can't ignore safety numbers. We look at data, and we consider everyone's best interests when we're making improvements. Again, whether it's a roundabout or an arc. My family drives here. I want my daughter, my wife, me, I want my family, I want them to be in as safe as a condition as possible.
Sure.
So my best interest is each of our best interests, and we really do think that way here in our District 4 office in Elizabethtown. We live, work in these counties, our communities.
Sure.
We want them to be the best. And while it may not look like that decision makes sense to your mind from an engineering standpoint, it's been scrutinized, evaluated, re-scrutinized, re-evaluated. It's been put through the ringer and tried and true. And that's not to say they're always successful, but we have put a lot of effort and planning into making sure it's the right thing to do before we do it.
Okay. Yeah. So your office is, tell everyone where your office is.
Sure, we're right there in the...
And give me your cell phone. If you find a pothole, Chris said just text him. I'm pretty sure that's what you said.
But yeah, we're right at the end of New Glendale Road on the south side of
Especially
E-Town.
late at night on the weekends, okay? Please text Chris.
The District 4 Department of Highways office, we're easy to find right on Dixie. 634 East Dixie Street is where, or East Dixie Avenue is where we are. And Facebook and Twitter.
So you got a Facebook presence?
Yeah, at KYTC District 4. KYTC District 4. You'll find us there. So we post.
But you're not on TikTok.
No.
At least there's some parameters.
We do, incidents where major road closures are happening, wrecks.
Okay.
We try to just, it's a informational outlet. Bigger projects, planned stuff, and stuff that's not planned, incidents too. We try to keep folks up to date there. And you can contact us through that messenger, or you can just give our office a call. My email address is public, chris.jessie, Jessie, at ky.gov. I'll reply back to you. It may not always be the answers we want to hear, but I'll tell you what's going on. I'll give you the best information I can possibly give you.
There you go. There you go. And the GlendaleStudy.com? Is that
GlendaleStudy.com.
That's kind of the hot topic here.
It is, yes. And something very important is US 62 out near the interstate.
Yes.
Getting ready to put a project on the ground to help that out. I mean, there's a lot of congestion, and more's coming.
Yeah.
So that's what we've got to plan for. The railroad overpass there is a major issue.
Okay.
Ring Road at the end there is a major issue. The interstate interchange, it needs to flow better, and we're trying to put ideas on the ground to help that happen.
Okay.
And so we've got a couple plans we're going to present to the public. We want that feedback. And drive62.com is that
drive62.com.
Yeah. And folks can, there will be a survey up there for folks to fill out, and that public information meeting coming up too.
We got about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
62 is pretty interesting. If you take it from one end of the state to the other.
Yeah.
Have you ever done that? Have you ever driven it?
I've not driven the whole corridor now.
Oh, it goes through Nortonville, Kentucky. It goes through, I'm from the western part of the state, and it goes through, it's a real cultural phenomenon.
I'll have to do the yard sale tour one of these days.
It's wild. It's wild. Professor Chris, we now have 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So you've been doing it in your best FM radio voice.
Yeah.
Send us out of here in your best FM radio voice, and say hi to the public, bye to the public, or whatever.
Well, Hardin County Educational TV, thank you for having us, and we hope you have a great week.
Listen to that. You listen to that. There's the man right there. There you go. Coach
sunny
Chris.
and 80, sunny and 75.
Sunny and 75.
Sunny and 75.
In Hart County, always 72 and a nice breeze. All right. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ron.